That's called to another purpose.
Being 3 minutes after 7 o'clock, we have adjourned to the powder room. I call the Board of Health meeting to order today, Monday, June 4th. We have an active agenda. All members are present. Also present is Joe Fair from Copeland and Page. We have a number of members of the audience. The first thing on our agenda tonight is a reorganization of the Board of Health after the elections. We have to have a reorganization. I need to turn the meeting over to Sharon.
I'd like to ask if there's any nominations for chair.
I'd like to nominate Robert Manning to be chair.
Second.
Do I have a vote?
I accept.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I also now need to nominate or ask for nominations for the position of vice chair. I'll nominate Terry Mays. Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have a vote here? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Unanimous.
Congratulations.
Board has been reorganized. Welcome, members of the board. It's the same like it did before. Tonight's second amendment agenda, condominiums and trash issue that was raised in the condominiums. I welcome any member of the condominium group if they wish to come and talk. Just raise your hand, we'll recognize you, come up, name and address, and do whatever you want to do. We're here to hear your voice, your opinions, and however you want to address the board, feel free to come up and add your comments. All I ask is that you name and address and then state whatever information you want to state. So we're here to talk about the condominium trash issue as it resulted from the town meeting. At the town meeting, it was direction mentioned that probably the best suited thing was for the condominiums to come back to the Board of Health during our next meeting, which is tonight. And so I open the floor to anyone who has anything they'd like to address to the Board of Health regarding condominium and the trash issue. Please come up. Right behind the podium, if you don't mind.
No problem.
Okay.
I think I'm loud enough.
Sure. Get you the mic, not a problem.
That's right. That's okay.
I watch your volume.
Thank you. My name is Brenda Shepherd. I'm from Lincoln Village Condominiums. In 1991, I was president of Lincoln Village Condominiums. At that time, the vice president and I met with board representatives, and we met with the town to get our trash removed. At that time, it was several months, and they agreed to remove our trash. August 28th of 91, Chairman Richard Kavanaugh wrote, "Please be advised that at the meeting of August 27th, 1991, the Board of Health met with representatives of the various condominium complexes within the town of Abington. The main purpose of said meeting was to discuss the double standard question as far as taxes and public services are concerned. Board of Health rules and regulations for trash pickup state that any building containing more than 3 families is ineligible for trash pick under the town contract. This regulation was set forth in 1975 prior to the emergence of condominium complexes as separate entities in the town of Abington. As condominiums are individually owned residences, it was the Board of Health interpretation that condominium complexes established in the town as of September 1st, 1991, should be eligible for trash pickup under the town contract. And the town has been picking our trash up since 1991. You're saying things are not grandfathered in. Well, there's new laws on signs, why aren't we taking the signs down that don't meet those? It's just pick and choose whatever it seems the town's benefit is for. It doesn't seem right to condominium owners. We pay, there are 57 units, and they pay $3,000 to probably $3,300 for taxes. That's about $190,000. I'm not saying, I mean, there aren't a lot of kids in there, we don't use all the services, but a lawyer back in 1991 said that we should have trash pickup. I don't know how you can just say it's 21 years later, okay, we're done with you. It just makes the condominium owners feel like we are second-class citizens, we don't get a say in anything, and for the little piece of land we have, the town gets a good chunk of change from all of us. If you have, I'm sure Trukey's doesn't pay as much as we do, and they probably have the same amount of land as we do. Also, I had received a phone call in February from the Board of Health asking me if we paid for our dumpster. And I said, yes, we do. And at that time, because I was foolish, I didn't take the number down because I'm no longer on the board. And I told the woman that we did pay for our dumpster. And she told me at that time that, oh, I don't know why you're paying for your dumpster. So to me, I was under the impression that the town was going to pick up the cost of the dumpster that we're paying for instead of canceling our trash. So I don't understand the disconnect there. As I said, we are concerned, quite a few of us, and it does say that it's up to the, in the notes from October 92, it says that condominiums established before 1991 would have their trash picked up. And those established after 91, it was to the discretion of the town. Now, it's your discretion. When we moved in, we knew that trash was not going to be our problem. It was the town's. Other places that were built since then knew that they had to pay their trash. I understand that trash is expensive. Isn't everything. I don't think we're asking too much to maintain what we already have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Please.
I'm Ellen Crevison from Stonegate Square, Madison Street.
And a couple of things. The first is, I know that one of the arguments is that because we have dumpsters, we could dispose of more trash than a family could with their 64-gallon bin. And I think we would all agree that you could give us a dumpster that's equivalent to each unit having 64 gallons. And if we go over that, we have to pay extra. But it equates to about for our condo, it's about a 6-yard dumpster. And we could live with a 6-yard dumpster. So that, or 2 of them, and it equates to 2. The other thing is that, another argument was that everybody in the town doesn't use all the services that their taxes pay for. But everybody has the opportunity to use those services. I have the opportunity to use the schools and the police and the fire. And if you deny me trash, you're taking away my opportunity to use that service. And I think I pay for that service by paying the taxes. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Please come up.
Hi, I'm Maureen Rogers with Stonegate Square. I understand there's been a lot of discussion. We recently got a letter from the attorney that said that, and I don't want to be in the middle of all this, saying that the Board of Health shouldn't be taking a vote because they don't have the license. I don't care about that. All I'm caring about is that at the town meeting, they talked about a year's worth of pickup for the condominiums as a total of $26,000. Now, with all the savings that you're doing with the new bins, it seems to me that either you can keep us on because we're the same kind of pickup as your municipal and the schools, or give us some kind of rebate for our taxes if you're not going to do it so that we can pay for it, or 3, give us those bins. I mean, at Stonegate Square, we can easily put those bins out in front, 3 feet, like you're asking, and have the same kind of pickup as the other residents. So all we're asking for is just to treat us as fairly. I mean, we are residents, we do pay taxes. I don't have kids, but I still give to, you know, the schools and the fire whenever anything comes about. So that's all we're looking for, is just some fairness. And if there is a vote to be called, I hope that you'll consider us if you're going to do another revote. Thank you.
Please.
Bill Bullfight, Stonegate Square, Condominium also. Okay. There's one thing that I found kind of interesting is, I don't know the gentleman's name, but he had mentioned that he was willing to pick up our recyclables. He was actually going to pay for the dumpster and pick up the recyclables. The thing that I found interesting was that he wants to pick up our recyclables. And in turn, we see the revenue that he's going to get from the trash company for the recyclables to go back to the town. But he wants us to pay for our own trash removal. Now, if that's the case, why can't those funds be brought back to the company so that we can subsidize our trash pickup? I mean, it seems to me kind of like talking out of two sides here. Fine, you want us to pay for our trash. Well, when there's an opportunity you can make money off our recyclables, oh no, we'll take that. But we still want you to pay, but we'll pay for that dumpster because there's a profit over there. But the bottom line is, if you're making profit on recyclables, and I'll be honest with you, if you walk or take a ride over to our development, you will find that every single recyclable bin, our trash pickup is on Tuesday, is totally full. And I guarantee you, if we had a 6-foot, or whatever, 6-yard, whatever they call it, you'll find that over time, our recyclables will be more than the actual trash removal. And you'll be making money off us, and not costing money. Because the beauty about it is, when you have 48 units, you have the opportunity through the association to get all 48 people to be better recyclers. And you're already seeing this now. So now you have an advantage to make money off our recyclables and find that the cost of removing the trash is going to be cheaper, because this is the way that I see us going. The other thing is, I agree. We're in a situation where everything costs more, trash, everything, absolutely. And what I don't understand is the town of Rockland, what they do is everybody in the town of Rockland pays their fair share. You know how they do that? When they get their water and they get their sewer bill, they get a trash bill. Every single year, and I know a good friend of mine who's a landscaper in Rockland, he pays $500 a year for his trash bill, $250 and $250 every time he gets that bill. So what they've done in Rockland is they've shared the cost amongst everybody, whether you're a condo unit or whether you're a home. It seems like for some reason this town has decided that the cost of the burden of the increase in cost is just going to be picked on to the condominium developments. Me, if I was running this, I would talk to all the condo associations in this town. And I think if you do it right, you can make more money on the recyclables and end up cutting your costs for your trash removal. If somebody put some kind of organization on it, because I truly believe, the beauty about it is I truly believe, when you have a condo association, I know we have 48 units, and it's a lot easier for us to communicate with 48 homeowners. If you're going down Patterson Street, or you're going down the Willow Street trying to get 48 units, you know, they for the same thing.
Sorry, you said you don't know his name. Are you referring, I think you're referring to the town manager.
Oh, whatever.
Okay.
The gentleman who wanted to do the meeting because he wasn't feeling good, but.
It was the town manager. It was the town manager.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Jan?
Thank you.
Jan Farrell, 20 Connolly Street, Second Path condos B5. You know, I feel the same way everybody else does, and it's interesting to look at the notes back from 1991. And Setauket Path has never been included in anything. It just doesn't make sense. We were built in 1984, so even when all of this went through, nobody remembered that we existed. I think we just kind of tucked in the woods that we don't exist. But I came across it in 2006, and basically had no problem with the Board of Health, you know, putting us on for a trash pickup. And I feel the same way that everybody else does. We as condo homeowners feel like second-class citizens, you know. We're not treated the same. And that's not just with this particular issue here. I think there's a lot of things out there. People think of a condo, ew. And that's not true. We're considered single family, and I would say most of your condos in the town of Abington are privately owned. I mean, they're not rented. I think it's mostly homeowners, a lot of they're single people, retired people, people that don't necessarily generate a lot of trash. And I think too that some of the condominiums, if they have to pick and choose if this doesn't end up, you know, going the way that we like it to go, is a cost factor. You know, the town wants recycling. But I think some of the condos, at least the 5, and I don't disagree with what was just said, but you may force them to do the opposite. Just washing their hands of the recycling and say it's gonna cost us more money because now we gotta rent the dumpster, we gotta rent all the recycle stuff. So we're just not gonna recycle it, it's too much of a hassle, we'll just throw it all in the dumpster, it's much easier for us. Now, I only have 16, we only have 16 units. So I mean, we're much smaller. We have a 6-yard dumpster, it's never full, but we have to rent the dumpster. Why rent a 4-yard dumpster when a 6-yard dumpster was $10 more per month? It was a no-brainer. And we have 4 recycle totes. And for some reason, I've never figured this out until recently, I still haven't figured it out. Waste Solutions makes us separate the trash. We have to put glass cans and plastics in 2 of the totes and cardboard and paper in the other 2 totes. And they're marked that way from Waste Solutions. And then they come and they dump it all in one truck. I just thought maybe they would dump it in 2 sides of the truck. But we have to separate the trash. And I've been on, you know, you can ask some of my homeowners in here how much I've been on people about recycling. And, you know, doing it the right way and, you know, don't just dump stuff in there. But I do think some of the bigger condos, you may find out that it will be easier for them. I don't want to use a trash monitor with my condo. I gotta tell you, I don't enjoy going out there and looking at lid to see what gets thrown away. And I don't enjoy dumpster diving, let me tell you. But sometimes I had to do it in order to say, oh, I don't want to get caught. Somebody did something wrong. I'm going to fix the problem before the trash gets picked up, so that we can keep doing what we're doing. It's a great cost for small condominiums such as ours. It works out to the end. John Troop was the lowest, and we don't know nothing more about negotiations with other trash. You know, I do understand, you know, John's situation at the moment and stuff like that, referring to the town manager, and you know, that hasn't been able to be done. But still, even at Troop's lowest price compared to Waste Management and some of the other ones around, it would be $16 a month for each one of our homeowners on top of the condo. That's a lot of money. I mean, that's over $3,000 a year for us. And that's why I brought it up when we had our meeting at the beginning of May, because this thing is hitting people that didn't know anything about it in the middle of our budget years. You guys are doing your budget now, and the middle of our budget year was pretty tough. Where are these people? I mean, we were going to have to come up with $3,000 or $1,500 for the rest of the year. Other condominiums much larger are going to have to come up with maybe double, maybe triple that amount to just get them through the end of the year. And that's when Mr. D'Agostino came through with saying, okay, we'll cover you to the end of the year. And did tell us at that meeting, May 3rd, that I know that Bob was here and John and Sharon was here, that there was no money in the budget. Yet at town meeting, the money's there. So I don't know how that happened between May 3rd and May 21st, but it ended up there. I don't think the money's there. I don't want that to reflect us, because we didn't have anything to do with that. It was told us one way, and when I brought it up at town meeting, it was told another. I agree. The abatement thing, that's the other way to go. If there's no resolution to this. I can't understand why in one letter from the town manager, or actually, excuse me, the meeting was in kind of the letters that went out, and what was said was that it was private property. This was back actually when I came to the meeting at the end of January. it's liability. Town council says they can't come down the driveway, it's private property, blah, 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 blah. Yet, in the recent letter, which I addressed at town meeting, states about the recycle dumpster, that, possibly, further, the town is also exploring the possibility of reducing trash tonnage at the condominium complexes by providing a second dumpster just for recycling, of which the town would assume the cost of pickup. Okay, you can come down our driveway and pick up the recycle, which you're gonna get the profits for, but you can't come down and pick up our trash because it's private way. I don't get it. It's still a dumpster. You're picking up municipal dumpsters in town. You're picking up dumpsters at the condominiums. But I guess the biggest issue, and I think the other condos feel the same that I do, that has been brought up is that this isn't something that just happened between last year and this year. You're going back over 20 years for something that was done. And, for us, we've only been like 6 years now because no one remembered us in the town. I mean, we've been paying taxes all this time and nobody remembered us. And I think that's what I think the Board of Health has to consider, depending upon whose decision it is, whether it's, the selectmen, the town manager, the Board of Health. Once that get narrowed down and figured out what's going on, we are taxpayers, you have been doing this, there isn't a problem. Waste Solutions doesn't have a problem. They're doing it now. So if town manager is talking about exploring the recycle, and if you folks feel that we need to have the equal amount of trash thrown away, I don't have a problem with that either. I don't think either way that gets decided, giving us the same barrels that you're giving an individual homeowner. What's it, 114 barrels for Lincoln Village or something like that?
Yeah.
That would stretch from Lincoln Village to South Wayne, Route 18. I mean, ours would stretch half Cleverly Street, and uphill. I mean, for senior citizens stuff, that's kind of tough. It's a no-brainer to me. Keep the service the way that it is. It's not a problem. I understand that it wasn't put in the budget, but that's not our problem. And I do know that the Board of Health is talking about some money out there, to go back to the town. Maybe that would be some money that would be good to go back to the town for the purpose of continuing the town trash pickup for constants. Give it a thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, please?
Jackie Mercer, 23 Greenship Terrace, and I own a unit at Kingswood in which my mother resides. She's been a resident of Kingswood since 1971. She went through the whole conversion from apartments to condos, and she's very comfortable there. She's now 89 years old. She's the longest residing resident at Kingswood. I'm quite concerned about the whole thing, and financially, I just ran some real quick little numbers. If each of the 200 plus units that are currently receiving services pay approximately $3,000, give or take, on municipal taxes, the town is generating about $600,000 in taxes. And according to some numbers that I believe one of our selectmen gave us, we're talking well under $30,000 a year to cover the municipal trash for these 204 or 5 units. It seems to me if we are generating well over $500,000 in municipal funds for the town to use to cover bills, approximately $30,000 should be allocated to covering the one service that all 204 or 5 homes rely on, and not require us to have to go out. On top of that, we are already covering, at least at Kingswood, and I believe at some of the others, we're covering the rental cost of the dumpsters. Kingswood, having 80 units and 5 parking lots, we have 5 dumpsters. We're paying a fee of approximately $315 a month to cover the dumpster fee. So we're not incurring an additional expense back to the town to provide the dumpsters. But what would it cost if we needed 160 of the bins that you need to provide. And if they're going to Weymouth, we're going to Quincy by the time we line them up. I don't understand the math, and I'm certainly disappointed that somebody somewhere along the line in the last 6 months has pulled back on a commitment that was made in 1991. And that the condo people, the trustees or their boards of directors, got no official notice until so late in the game that we didn't even get invited in to discuss it prior to any vote being taken. And I really hope tonight that we can muster your support, perhaps discuss it, and maybe at least give us your vote of confidence that you support us in receiving the same privileges that other individual homeowners receive in the town of Abington. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Anything else to be said? Tom?
Tom Dion, 27 Mulberry Drive, also member of the Board of Selectmen. I guess I'd start off tonight, but why is this podium crooked?
Can you fix it?
Bothering me. I don't know. But anyway, Mr. Chairman, just a couple of observations, and again, I think I have 5. One is, I don't think the condo people, I think they're aware that there was some sort of legal opinion rendered, and I guess to boil it down is that it no longer resides in the Board of Health to determine whether or not condos are picked up under the solid waste contract that we have with Waste Solutions. Is the gist of it that I get. Now, in saying that, it just seems to me that in looking at some of the correspondence that has gone back and forth, it always seems like the question is stated in the negative. For example, why don't we have to pick up trash from the condo? Do we need to pick up? Is there a legal obligation? And it keeps on coming back that no, I think there's pretty good documentation from Copeland and Page that under the state statutes that guide this, there isn't any sort of legal standing to pick it up. But it does strike me that, okay, maybe there's no legal reason to pick it up, but is there a reason why we can't decide as a community to continue to pick up the condo trash after 20 years? And I think some of the strong evidence that has been presented, not only tonight, but in the past, where there seem to be 2 votes on previous Board of Health meetings where it was considered part of the rules and regulations of trash pickup, where I think the ruling was being picked up as single-family homes was the way I understood it. And it was some sort of a time factor that anything after 91 and 92 would not necessarily be picked up. So I guess my first question, we have legal counsel, is there any reason that if the community, and I'm going to say the Board of Selectmen or the town manager, is there a reason why we can't continue to pick up the trash, solid waste in the condos?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, June.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
You can just say, move it.
That's okay. Mr. Chairman, just to respond to Selectman Dion's question, essentially, you know, the issue, there's a legal issue here and there's a policy issue, and what Selectman Dion's referring to, I believe the Board of Health has seen a copy of the letter, is that essentially, you know, there is no legal obligation for the town to pick up, to provide any type of trash service pickup for that matter. And ultimately, in a situation like this, it becomes a policy determination, or in this case, really the Board of Selectmen in conjunction with the town manager as a contracting authority for the town to decide what trash pickup services will be provided and essentially, what will be the, I guess, guiding principles of who's getting trash pickup. It's not a simple question to answer directly because ultimately there are any number of considerations that might go into deciding which or how we're going to be providing the service. So for example, if the town were to say, well, we're only going to provide trash pickup service to the Board of Selectmen, well, that could be problematic. So when you get into situations where you are having a determination that it's not necessarily everyone in town that is going to receive the service, ultimately you get into issues of whether or not there are sort of rational basis for why we're drawing the lines or distinctions where they are. So ultimately, the short answer is potentially there may not be a reason why we can't, but it would really depend upon what is the basis upon which we're relying to decide who's getting trash pickup and who is not. That's not something I can answer because ultimately that's not a legal question. That first is a policy question as to who is going to be provided the service, and then ultimately we would analyze from there sort of whether or not there's a sound legal basis to make that, to draw that distinction. But in theory, no, I mean, there's not anything specific that would say no, but we really need to look at the specific facts and who's being included and who's being excluded and kind of judge from there. So I'm not sure if that makes sense.
Could I just ask you, you're an attorney?
That's up to you.
Yeah, you don't mind?
No, not at all.
Just a quick question for you. Do you live in Abington?
I do not.
If you live in Abington, say on Monroe Street, could the town say to you, you live at 45 Monroe Street, and your neighbor, I don't know, gives the town a hard time, whatever, and there's always downtown politics, they have a total pain in the butt. Could the town turn around and say, well, 47 Monroe Street, we're not that big of a church? Would that be discriminatory against that person on 47? Or is that legal? I mean, would that be, if I came to you at 47 on Monroe Street, hired you as an attorney, would you take my case to court and say, wait a minute, they're discriminating against you because they picked up 45, but they're not picking up 47, and the town says, well, this guy bitches about everything, man, I just can't deal with this anymore. We're not picking up his trash. What would you do as an attorney? What would you tell me? See you later.
Well,
I'm asking you as an attorney.
No, I understand, and I obviously we're talking hypothetically here.
Absolutely.
Again, though, it's not, because it's not a service that the town is obligated to provide, ultimately it would really come down to, the full set of facts and circumstances. I understand your scenario that you described, but there may be, and again, I don't know, again, we're just talking in sort of an extreme example, there may be sound, rational reasons as to why one is being picked up versus the other. If you're saying that you're retaliating against somebody because they've engaged in some action that's a protected activity, that potentially could have legal ramifications if you were doing it on that basis. But, really is in my legal opinion, this is a policy question that the Board of Selectmen in conjunction with the town manager would have the ability to decide, and there are sound and rational reasons why you may say certain of in this case, where we're providing the trash pickup for a portion only of the current condominiums in town, and while you may say, well, we're not going to provide it to any of them anymore, and there may be rational basis to do that, legal reasons to do that, that are consistent with sound public policy. So, your example, I don't think is with all due respect, a fair comparison to what we're talking about here. So I think.
So basically what you're telling me is that 47 Monroe Street, if the town decided not to pick up their trash, and maybe not only because they're 47 is down a dirt road and they don't want to send the truck down there because it's too far down and the trash company's complaining, then maybe have a right to say, because you live so far up the road, we're not gonna strike down anything.
Well, I don't want to, I don't know if that's a real set of facts or not,
I know.
but,
That'll change a little bit.
but there could be, I mean, those could be reasons that could be taken into account by the policy maker, as in determining whether or not you're going to provide a service which you're not already legally obligated to
So if I was to
provide.
hire you, you would tell me to see you later.
No, I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask?
Yes,
a
please.
quick question? Are you Mark? Are you
I
the
am
one who
not,
rendered the
no, Mark Rich,
Okay.
is an attorney in my office,
All
and
right.
wasn't able to be here.
The question that I have is why was the town council, or why was the council, after all these years that the Board of Health was supposedly the people who were voting, working on the contract and so on, why are we now getting an opinion saying they're really null and void, and they're not supposed to be doing it, and they shouldn't have done it, and why are we here tonight if they don't supposedly have the authority? That's what I got from that rendering position, which means then we gotta go back to the Board of Selectmen and have them vote, and then they have to find some money in the finance. I mean, if they've been doing it all this time, why is suddenly that opinion being rendered today?
Well, bear in mind that that opinion was rendered because that was the question that we were asked. So prior to being asked that specific question, we weren't asked to render an opinion, because what you have to, in terms of what town council's role is, certainly with the firm I work for, Coleman and Page, is we don't make the policy decisions in a given town. We provide legal opinions based on whatever legal opinions we're asked to provide. We generally speaking don't come into a town, sort of do a top to bottom review without being asked and say, you're doing this right, you're doing this wrong, you need to change this and change that. That's really not our role. We're here to sort of provide the legal advice. So what can happen, and again, we haven't been town council, as I'm sure most of you are aware, you had long-term town council in the form of Attorney Cotter and then subsequently his son. And we came in after that fact, so I can't speak to what was happening back then when this originally came about because our firm wasn't involved. What I can say is that, and it happens in various places where we represent cities and towns, is that there is a particular local customer practice of how people are doing things. And that was an accepted part of the way Abington was handling the issue of trash pickup and who was voting on things, and everything was moving in that direction, and that was, whether it was for good, bad, or indifferent, that's how things were being done. We were asked to provide an opinion as to who ultimately has the authority in terms of trash. Well, A, is there a legal obligation to provide the trash service pickup? B, whatever the answer to that question is who is responsible in the town for deciding whether or not what the service will be, and ultimately, if there's a contract that needs to be entered into, who's the responsible person?
Just to interject and answer her question, I think, Joe, in fairness to the town manager, and this is my opinion, but up until May 24th, I think most people involved with this thought that the vote that the Board of Health took, I think back in January, December, which was a 3-2 vote to remove the condos, they were the governing authority. And I think in fairness to our town manager, he wanted to set the record straight.
No, that's not true.
Okay.
That was our opinion.
No,
though.
we
This is
found
what-
out at that meeting that he was the chief procurement officer, and he was presenting us what the contract was gonna look like.
Oh, okay, but
We had no say in the format, whether it was automated or manual, and we had no say in whether, well, we did, it was part of the contract that the condos were gonna be dropped. And at that time, I said, we're gonna take away the service from the taxpayers, and he said, yes, we are.
Well,
We have it on tape.
again, I think the question was, why does this letter surface at this late stage in the game? I think that was the question.
Absolutely.
And again, I think it was clarification, because again, I was personally under the same opinion that, for lack of a better term, the condo people would come marching in tonight and ask the board to take a revote, and if the Board of Health took a revote to pick up the condos, what basically the legal opinion is, it doesn't matter, because that's under under the preview of the town manager and the board of selectmen.
But that's,
I think,
that's the opinion that we were even given at the town meeting, is that we should, I remember you coming up, Mr. Chairman, that you came up and said, well, we will entertain it, I know that there's a letter out there. So we were all told by our town manager to come back here tonight, talk to you all, and then suddenly that letter surfaces along with it. And then there was supposed to be I thought there was going to be a selectmen's meeting at the same time as this, and I'm like, how are we going to go between both places? But all we want to do is find out who's on first. I mean, if you are the authority, if you are going to make a decision and make a vote, I would hope that you look at us tonight and make a vote, and then we'll have to deal with what's going on. I don't want to hear about these internal politics that seem to be raising an ugly head right here between town management, board of health, and selectmen. So I don't know who has the authority, but you used to have the authority, you used to have the contract and so on. I throw it back to you. I'm hoping that you'll consider what we're asking of you. We're only talking about $30,000, you're gonna make more money.
I don't know whose hand was up first, so does it matter? I don't want to get into this. I'm going to allow both of you to ask your questions.
Russell.
Oh, she can go first. I can ask my question.
This is an open meeting.
Okay.
You can ask all the questions you want.
I live in Kingswood. I've been there for 27 years, and they've been picking up my trash. A question is follow-up to this. One of the comments that you made, Manning, was that, and I think Teresa also, that although we were under the impression that you were curing this contract and that you were in charge of setting policy for the town, you're not saying that that really wasn't so, that the town manager is setting policy for the town in the trash contract situation. So my question, I suppose, sort of goes back to you, Tom. Does the selectmen have any say over this either, or is this strictly up to the town manager? I mean, that's almost like what you're saying is that. Let me finish. If the Board of Health, when they thought it was their policy decision to make, were not actually in any position to make a decision.
Can I answer that question first?
Yeah.
Please, because I don't want to mislead you at all. At the last contract, which was the first year I was on the board, the then acting town manager, Mr. Warren, removed us from the ability to sign the trash contract. We were prepared, as we had been prior to me becoming on the board. I had been in the audience now for over 3 years. They had always negotiated trash contracts. We actually, during the period I was watching and monitoring, they were going through the process of obtaining a trash contract. And then Mr. Warren, the then town manager, took away that authority and made the final conclusion in the final committee deal. And from that point in time, I didn't know if we did or didn't. I just thought we'd be part of it. I want you to hear what I just said. I didn't know if we did or didn't have the authority. I just wanted to be part of the decision-making process. When it was brought to my attention in December and then in January, we'd be meeting with him, it was made clear to us in our January meeting that he was coming to us to review what he had collected for information and was presenting to the board as the proposed trash contract.
Okay.
We did not have the authority. We were told that he was the binding, and I don't have a legal clerk, I apologize. I am not a lawyer. I don't even claim to be one part-time. But we didn't have the authority to negotiate the contract. So we were there just as a regulatory board of the town. And so I want to make sure you're clear on that we were, I hope no one was misleading you, or if you were misled, I want to make sure that's really understood. That we were told in January, and anyone on the board wants to not discriminate, but wants to challenge that finding, please speak. But I don't believe I'm wrong here. I believe it was very clear at that meeting that John told us that he had the binding authority to close the deal, and it was not for us to make that deal.
All right, so that, now I understand.
That answer. So what else do you have?
The second part of my question is, in here, it says that it's actually possibly the Board of Selectmen. But what I'm hearing is that it probably isn't the Board of Selectmen either,
Okay, is your question, is it the Board of Selectmen?
Well, I'm sort of like, where do we go next? If
I
it's
just
trash,
want to ask,
maybe-
I want you to ask the question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is the question, who has the authority to?
Yes, who does have the authority to
And
influence?
I am not putting Mr. Fair on the slamming deck, because he came at the selectmen to be here tonight. Is that a clarification that we could make after
Sure.
making this statement?
And part of it, I think, what we're also seeing too is you have to remember 2004, the town also moved to a strong town manager form of government.
That's correct.
And this issue, all of this talk about the decision to pick up the trash and whatnot, all of that predated that. One of the things that happened when we went to a strong town manager form of government is the town manager, obviously, by definition, had a lot of authority. One of the specific responsibilities of the town manager as designated in the charter is that he is the chief procurement officer. So he's the individual within the town when it comes time to, through your public bidding process and getting these types of services, this kind of a contract put together, he's the individual that is responsible for the, essentially the agreeing to that contract. However, the Board of Selectmen, though, is still the chief executive of the town, chief executive office, and essentially the chief policy maker. So it's really, to answer your question, sort of a combined authority, because one, in effect, can't do without the other. So the decision on whether or not you're going to provide trash service pickup, for example, which is an overall policy question. Is Abington going to have any kind of town-provided trash service pickup? Ultimately, is a policy question for the Board of Selectmen to make. However, if you're going to go outside and contract to do that, you're going to have some sort of an outside vendor like your waste management, something like Waste Solutions, come in and do that. Your chief procurement officer under the public bidding laws is ultimately the one that's going to be negotiating, signing off on that contract. But you're going to need some
According to policies set by the Board of Selectmen.
You're gonna have to communicate very tightly in order for the town manager to know what he has to improve.
And I think ultimately what happened too in the evolution of this is that I think because of the local custom that was being followed in the town about the Board of Health and its role in the trash services, that it was, the Board of Health was ultimately the ones that were making some of these policy decisions, and that's the way it was done in town. And subsequently to a strong town manager form of government, it sounds like the prior town manager, Bill Warren, said, okay, well, now I'm the chief procurement officer, I'm the one that has to sign the contract, I'm the one that negotiates this contract, not you. But nonetheless, the board was still having a role. It really wasn't until very recently, and I think the date of the letter is May 24th, so probably shortly before that, that I think the town, there was some confusion over this issue based on how things had been going on in the town, and the town manager wanted to sort of clarify things and asked us for a specific legal opinion. Okay, let's set this whole record straight. That's what we ultimately provided. But up until that point, we really weren't asked to provide that legal opinion.
Brenda?
Brenda.
Sorry.
I have 3 copies of this, I'll give to you. This is what I find mine, by the way. I thought these were legal documents from the Board of Health in 1991. How come all of a sudden their word means nothing? I know when I give my word, be it tonight or 30 years ago, I'm an honorable person, and my handshake and my word is worth something. And it upsets me that their word is worth nothing. They made an agreement with us 21 years ago. I don't even remember where we were. We might have been in Kingswood. And Sean Cotter came to that meeting, and he agreed with us. So that was the lawyer for the town then. How come all of a sudden a new lawyer comes in and says, oh no, we can't do this? I don't see that it says grandfathered in anything. And if that's the case, I'm going to go through everything in this town with a fine-tooth comb, and I'm going to say, I don't like that, change it. Because I don't like it. That's what you're opening up. It's not just because you don't want to pay for it. I don't want to pay for a lot of things, but I am. It's not right, is my consensus of this. It's just not right. I don't care if it's 1991. You made an agreement. Too bad. I'm sorry for the other condominiums, but it says before 1991. You knew when you moved in 92 that you didn't get trash. If you were in 91, you knew you got trash. It's clear cut to me. I don't see how it can be any way I don't think it's discriminatory to the other condos because it says in there, before 91. I don't understand how the word means nothing now. Those I thought were legal documents for meetings and it says, we got trash. I don't get it.
So I think what you're saying is that it was a policy in 1991, and now it's looking at changing that policy,
Correct, and,
even though it's a legal document.
well, I honestly can't say I've even, we've had an opportunity to review that internally, so I don't want to necessarily agree or disagree that it's a legal document. All I could say, without looking at the agreement, is that to the
Yes.
extent, if that, quote unquote agreement was entered into by an authority within the town that didn't have the authority to enter into the agreement, and, there's a lot of case law out there to that effect, then ultimately it's not binding on the town. In other words, if the person entering into the contract on behalf of the town didn't have the authority to enter into that contract in the first place, that contract is essentially legally unenforceable. Now, again, I haven't looked at that in fairness, so I can't speak to what that is or.
In 1991, Mr. Kavanaugh did have the authority according to the town because he was the one who took care of the trash.
Again,
So how can you change his authority now just because you don't want to pay for it? Sorry.
That's going into Jan, and then you.
Just a question, because the letter that we got for the meeting that we had, I just had it, I lost it. When yourself, Mr. Chairman, and Sharon was there, and Mr. D'Agostino was there for the meeting with the condo owners, I guess I'm confused back to your January 3rd vote. So if town manager attended your meeting January 3rd, okay, with a contract that he,
Draft.
excuse me, you're right, with the draft for the trash, okay? And did he say that he was handling it? That you were just kind of overseeing it? Or you?
It was clear to us, correct me if I'm wrong, Terry, it was clear to us that we would have to enforce the contract, we would have to manage the contract, but we couldn't sign the contract.
Okay, so that's the contract part. So the vote that was taken, 3-2, what does that mean? That, I guess,
We did review the contract, and then we did make a couple changes, and my favorite one that I remember was, and I did try to keep you guys into the contract. My favorite was, he wanted trash pickup on Veterans Day. I had a problem with that, so that was one of the changes we did. Yeah, no trash pickup on Veterans Day. And I did not like the idea of taxpayers losing a service. I'm not in favor of it. And that's when he brought up the possibility there could be a lawsuit. I didn't think there could be, because I had great faith in our former town council, and I'm sure that decision was made very carefully. So,
Well, that's
it was a 3-2 vote to approve
the changes?
the changes in the only version he gave us, which is automated or nothing. He
Okay,
said automated or
his-
pay as you throw on
His
July 1st.
his wording to us in that letter was, please be advised that the Board of Selectmen did not make a vote regarding the changes to trash pickup for your condominium complex. This vote was taken on January 3rd by the Board of Health. So
Right.
he's telling us the Board of Health made the changes to the contract.
We made some changes. One of them, like I said, was he wanted trash picked up on Veterans Day, and, yeah, he took our recommendations.
But he's saying you took the vote to make the changes, but yet he is the chief procurement officer to sign that contract, so.
It's confusing, isn't it?
It's
He's
a-
implying that
When I was at a
you
meeting
made
at the end of January, he said, I don't know if the word was excluding, but I know the rest of it, something like excluding the condominiums was, and in quote, the right thing to do, with no explanation. And that's what I was trying to get him to say, I don't understand it. So it sounded like, it's a little confusing when you look at this, you guys take a vote to make the changes, correct?
We didn't get all the changes we wanted.
Just that, whatever changes were made by that particular night. You guys took a vote to approve or make the changes that night? that, for a contract he was going to sign. And I think it goes back to what everybody was saying here. All of that was done 5 months before the condos were even notified at all, period. I guess that's the thing that the people are most upset about. Not only that it goes back to 1991, but
And I
the
did
fact-
ask him, I go, and you're gonna be the one, who's gonna notify the condo owners? And he said, you guys are. I go, oh no, you are, this is your idea.
Okay, so that's, so basically, he
So I'm
makes
taking.
the decisions, you make some changes, but it sounds like from here that, in everything in the wording that's come out, everything's been your responsibility, was the way it has been delivered to the condominiums, without Mr. D'Agostino taking any responsibility of that, not trying to talk behind his back, but that's my interpretation of the meetings that I've attended that these folks haven't been to, and, what I've heard and how it seems to be that, the selectmen were there, but not there, do you know what I mean?
Yes, ma'am.
The difference in roles between the selectmen and the town manager. If the selectmen are the policymaker, is the exclusion of the condominiums a policy decision? Because they've opened it, I mean, they say it's for the town. They're going to provide services to the town of trash. And he's doing the contract, and I understand, he's going to negotiate the contract. But isn't the exclusion of the condos a policy? I don't, who has the power to exclude the condos? One's the contract, one's the policy. Where's the exclusion of it?
Well, it's hard to answer that question because ultimately, the nature of your question shows exactly what the issue is, which is you have a policy-making board, but you have an individual that has the contracting authority. So in theory, under the circumstances that we're dealing with here, where we're talking about an outside entity providing the trash service, it's ultimately both of their roles under the circumstances, because you almost can't have one without the other.
I think the question though comes on, did the Board of Selectmen take a vote to support the new trash program? And I've heard two things. One, they did, it was a 4-0 vote, and I don't know if that was the case or not.
I don't know the answer to, I can't speak for what votes the Board of Selectmen specifically took, because I wasn't at any of those meetings. What I can say is that prior to the May 24th letter, and I don't think this is an unfair statement to say, and if anybody disagrees, please feel free to correct me, but I think within the town, between the Board of Health, the Board of Selectmen, the town manager, I think the understanding was, prior to asking us for this opinion, was that the town manager was the chief procurement officer, so that he was going to be the individual who was responsible for negotiating and signing the contract. But that, consistent with what the history had been, is the Board of Health was sort of the ones that were involved with sort of making or having some role in the process of the trash pickup and making those more policy-type driven decisions. But that ultimately, the town manager was for the contracting portion of it, was going to be the final authority on that piece of it. Fast forward then to when the actual request for opinion comes in, and that kind of changed things. So, and I believe any meetings that the Board of Selectmen might have had on this issue would have occurred prior to the town meeting, before the May 24th opinion letter.
I just want to add that all the meetings are televised for the selectmen and accessible on YouTube, so you can look it up, see if there were any votes.
Hi, I'm sorry, I'm still confused. The decision to exclude the condos from trash pickup was not really a contracting issue, because my understanding, based on what Mr. D'Agostino told us at our meeting, it was not included in the proposal. The decision was made prior to even putting the trash contract out for proposals. So someone made the policy decision that the condos would be excluded prior to even putting out proposals for the contracting. So it wasn't really part of the contracting process. It was a policy decision that was made prior to that. So I guess my question is, who made that policy decision as opposed to who's authorized to make a policy decision? That's my question.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's a question I can answer, because it's
Yeah.
not, that's
I don't know
a
whether
factual
anyone
question.
can tell me the
I don't
answer,
know.
but I understand what I'm saying, though.
If we go with the description of what a policy decision is based on the 1991 thing, I don't think there was a policy decision, it was just This is the contract, and it will no longer.
But when,
So there, I don't think there was a counter policy.
but when a request for proposals was put out, someone made the decision that specifically excluded the condominiums. Whoever wrote up the RFP or whatever they call
That would be
it,
the town.
excluded the condos.
I
So
understand.
someone made the decision, but yeah,
They keep
someone made a decision at that point, someone did.
Town
What
meeting.
I'm saying is, the town manager might have made that decision. Does he actually have the authority to make a policy decision such as that? Or was that supposed to be a decision that would have been made by the board? I'm not even sure what the question is.
Legitimate question. Sir, was that?
Well, I think this is going in the
Just
direction
want to make sure,
I
I
was gonna
want
go.
to make sure you were.
It sounds like the town manager should have really found out via the board of selectmen what was to be included in the contract, who was to be picked up, what services were supposed to be rendered. Because if he didn't know that, how could he reasonably go up and complete a contract?
All right, Mike, do you want to answer that?
I really didn't want to speak. But Mike, we're so glad you came. I am so. Where's the door?
I get up there.
And I want everybody here to know, it's not that I'm rushing you, but when Mike finishes, Jan had a question. I do have a gentleman from Mass DEP, we have other issues on our agenda that I need to get to. So if you have any additional questions, if we could just get them in. I want to give you your voice, but I do have an appointment that I've already delayed by half an hour, because I want to give you your point of view and your mindset, all right? So, go ahead, Mike.
Mike Frame, 726 Washington Street, member of the Board of Selectmen. And just a little bit of history. I was a member of the Charter Review Committee when we advised the town to go forward with the town manager form of government. And after that was done, there was the Board of Health that was deeply involved in trying to do a contract. And the previous town manager basically said to them, you negotiate the contract, I'm the chief procurement officer, and I'll sign it if I like it. That's the way it was put to me. Right? So he really wasn't involved in the process, you know, the board review of work. And then he, in fact, signed it. Now, since then, the town manager came up with, just to be fair about it, he did come on top that he wanted to go to this automated pickup. And I went to a meeting in January, and I think Jane might have been there. And basically, some of the information they had there was the original contract. And it was far-reaching, so that it actually had a dumpster at St. Bridget's, because we have this school and churches, different churches in town. That was actually written as part of the contract. But it was taken out because that was considered to be, quote-unquote, private property. So the trucks, the town trucks couldn't go and pick up the trucks. So we stopped picking up the churches and the schools just because of that reason. That's what I remember from that meeting. He also, I mean, there was a lot of things that were said at that night. Now, one of the things that sticks in me, and I sincerely believe, let me just back up, I'm kind of old. I ran to this office because they were going to take rubbish pickup away from the town. And they were going to take that money and they were going to distribute it to all town services. And like yourselves, I felt that's not fair, it's not reasonable. And I also feel right now that it's not reasonable what's happening to people, but it's like a catch-22. Because there is also the threat that Joe might be able to answer this, that if in fact we allow rubbish to continue the way it was, with just some condominiums and not all, that now you could subject the town to a lawsuit because of the ones that weren't being picked up. And being a member of the board of selectmen, I'm privy to how easily this town is sued, and the consequences of it was very expensive. So that sits in the back of my mind. And you know, it was also, to go back to the Board of Health, when this was done, as I understand it, the Board of Health had no consultant. They wanted a grant, and that consultant sat with the town manager and the chairman and devised this contract, this RFP, so well. So it was done with the manager of the Board of Health, town manager, and his consultant. And there was some issues that they brought back that I can't go over every one of them, but it wasn't like, in my opinion, it wasn't like it. I don't know how informed the board was at that time, but in my opinion, just sitting and listening to the conversation that was going on, it wasn't that the board didn't have any say in it. It was in fact a consultant that was hired And again, I apologize, I don't know where you guys are on, if Captain Farm or not. But it did seem to me sitting there that there had been, or should have been, I should say, some conversation. I really, it's interesting, I applaud you people for the way you conducted this last night. I think it's a tough issue. And I learned a lot. I'm concerned over where, if you put yourself in my shoes, how do I handle this? How do I say, okay, it would be nice to just say, okay, and then all of a sudden something to a lawsuit. You might be able to answer that. I don't know, probably can't, it's probably you don't know what would happen. Because I heard what you said, when you watch your property, I think the most important thing I heard was you people watch your property, you had that perk that allowed you to have rubbish pickup. And when other condominiums, like the Gables and stuff, want theirs, they knew beforehand they weren't getting that rubbish pickup. And I hated it. That is something that just like me, I felt they were pulling, my rubbish out of my heat, so to speak. My wife does a good job there, by the way, but I don't know. I don't know. We have to do some more research on it, but I'm definitely interested. I hear what you people are saying, so I don't know where we get off as a member of the board. I took that letter to mean the board of selectmen would be the only one that could authorize funds, but again, I'd have to get an interpretation from to go forward to spend funds. And then there's also the catch-22. Where do you get that money from? Because we just can't invent money. It has to come from a specific line item. And town meeting has already set those budgets in place. It might be something we can look at in the fall. I know that's a thing, but we definitely have a little bit more investigating to go before we resolve it. So I just want you to know where I'm at with that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Your question?
Chair,
That's fine.
just to help out, Mike, the good thing, right, is the town manager has said we're going to pick up your trash until December
I think we can
31st.
continue to pick up the trash.
Right, so nothing's going to happen probably tonight, but we've got time. We're not going to let it go away. You got two selectmen that are working on it. The board's going to work on it. I don't want you to go home feeling you didn't get anything accomplished. We heard everything you said. That piece of paper to me means a lot. So just to let you know, we've heard everything. Don't be discouraged. Hopefully we'll be able to work this all out. The town manager is.
Don't fall asleep, stay
Yes.
vigilant.
I just want you to, we've heard you.
Please.
So that's in the affirmative is in the respect that as we move forward, we have the support of all of you, or the majority of you, to pursue this?
Well, I'd like to tell you that we can give you support, but that last line of this letter,
Which letter are we
the one that
talking
was sent to you by, right? Such decision-making authority remains with the Board of Selectmen and the town manager.
I understand that.
Okay, so it's like,
Moral support.
yes, absolutely, you have mine.
And I think that's I forgot to put moral support.
I just have one last comment to the board. Thank you very much for what you've all
Yes.
done. But I also want to, if you can remind the selectmen for us, all the selectmen. I know somebody made a comment once that, don't worry about the conversation, they don't come up to vote. Well, guess what? We will. You're not talking about 48 units, 2 per unit, 96. We'll be at that ballot, and we will be voting. And if you want, and you can listen to the selectmen, whatever, this is the greatest part about this country. And if we still have the power, you want to put all the condo units together, 2 votes per unit? How many people show up for an election? I bet you will be at least 3/4. Last point.
Point well taken. I just want to thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
I need to make a point of clarification. I don't want to mislead you at all. We are not saying we're not supporting, we're not saying we're asking for them tonight. We're not saying that at all. What we are saying is we've listened, we've heard, we're not going away. We know you're not going away. And there's 2 members of the selectmen here that also hear the same thing I heard. I'd like to thank Attorney Fair for being here tonight, representing Councilman Page. This isn't a dead issue. This issue will go forward. I ask, as you just said, William, your diligence continue. We will do our diligence. We will find out where we stand, what we can say, what we can't say. When I find that out, we will let you know. If we're gonna do something as a board to vote, we will alert you well in advance to let you know that we are gonna do that, and we'll do that, because we publicize our meetings by law. We have to have them up the Wednesday before, we have to have them publicized. And I'm not saying this, you must do this, but there's a bulletin board downstairs. And the bulletin board posts every meeting that happens in this town hall. The way you find out if something's going on, if it's not on the web, is with that bulletin board. But I know it's the bulletin board amongst all the things that I've been aware of since I moved into this town in 1989, that's where you need to go to get your information. So if you don't have it, you may want to have someone come and look at what's being posted every week on the bulletin board. Yes, sir.
How long a notice do you get via the bulletin board?
Excuse me, sir?
How much notice do you get in advance?
We're putting our agenda up on Wednesday for the following Monday.
That's 48 hours.
48 hours by law.
Is the minimum.
And we do it generally longer than that, so, okay? I just want to thank you again for coming tonight. Thank you for being here tonight. Is there anything else? Did I miss anything?
Sorry we put the other gentleman behind.
Yes.
No, but thank you very much for your due diligence.
Is everything that you discussed will show on the agenda? There won't be
Anything I can discuss by law has to be listed on my agenda.
Good, how are you doing? Fine, thanks.
So do we come to the June 18th meeting?
I think just, you need to wait. I'm gonna
And anything that's been previously mentioned at any meeting is all the new business to be brought up.
We won't know when a trash discussion, other than watching the board, will happen again, correct? Either by the selectman, the town manager, or...
I can't speak for the selectman or the town manager. I am telling you this, if there's going to be a vote, if we're allowed to vote, if we have our vote means anything, if there's going to be a vote, my word is that as the chairman of the Board of Health, I will send a letter to whoever received these letters from Copeland and Page, the list of the 5 people at the 5 condominium, that a vote will be taking place at least 4 days in advance.
Thank you very much.
Okay?
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
See you Sunday.
Sharon, would you introduce us, please? I apologize. Thank you very much.
This is Mark Blumen from DEP. I think you've heard me say in the past, I've been speaking to him and asking him if he would come up and assist us with our mortuary process of revamping. Thank you. I apologize for the wait. Yes, nice to meet you. Thank you. Yeah.
So I brought some materials, but I wasn't exactly sure what you specifically had on.
Well, I will, is it all right to speak for?
Yes, it's okay if you speak, Sharon.
I think one of our concerns that we've had is I mentioned this to you on the phone, when you have a commercial residential zoning issue, they're back to back, and that we've had noise complaints regarding that, as far as what is the best way to rewrite that particular regulation. Is that something you would agree with, or question for higher number?
Okay, I looked at your noise regulations very briefly.
Okay.
And I haven't had a chance to sort of do it.
Okay. All right. All right. And then if you have any other guidelines that you have enacted upon with other cities and towns that might be a good thing for us to adopt.
Well, let me try to put the whole noise regulation in context from my perspective.
Okay.
From DEP's perspective. And then we can talk about the sort of state of municipal relationship in that. As you're probably aware, there is a noise regulation in the air pollution control regulation. So that's my program, is the air pollution control program. So I specialize actually not in noise, but in all forms of air pollution, for the kind of substances in the air as opposed to sound. But it falls on me to sort of be the only person as far The noise regulation, DEP, it's not quantitative. There's no decibel limits established in the regulations that went out to public hearing and were actually promulgated according to the public process. It's basically a prohibition on causing noise, period. And when you get into the quantitative part, it's all policy. And there is a long-standing policy that noise or sound that cause more than 10 decibel, 10 dBA impact over backward, or cause a pure tone, which is a distinct pitch. And then there's lots more guidance and sort of draft guidance and different guidance from one regional office of DEP versus a different regional office of DEP, and how they've actually tried to implement that and assist municipalities. The noise regulation is one of the regs that the health departments are authorized to enforce the DEP regulation. And in the past, when town health departments have asked DEP to approve their local regulations, DEP, and I didn't find any approved under 31C. Now, there's two provisions under the statutes. There's 31, which is the general health department regulations, and I think the origin of that is really sanitary, but it's very broad. And then there's a special provision, 31C, which talks about DEP approving health department regulations on air pollution. Specifically with respect to air pollution, DEP must approve health department regulations for them to be have the force of law under 31C. And when DEP has gotten requests to approve noise regulations under 31C, what I found was lots of requests and lots of responses from the department saying, this is tough, we would prefer that you simply implement the department's regulation, which you have the authority to do. So I didn't find a single example of a local health department noise regulation that had been approved by DEP under 31C, which is the special air pollution division. I also didn't find any that were approved under 31. That doesn't mean there aren't any, but that's a different sort of collection of approvals that I'm still trying to find out who has a repository of all of the health department regs that have been approved under 31. I've got copies of these for you, but if you're interested in seeing the difference, I'll be glad to hand them out, if that would be helpful.
So we should be working through the avenue of 31C.
Well, here's the funny thing about it. Our regulations include noise under the general category of air pollution. 31C does not. The state statute 31C that talks about DEP approval, state approval of health department regulations on air pollution doesn't include noise in a list of things that are considered air pollution. In fact, why don't I just hand out 31C. Now, I'm not sure.
So, tell me if I just totally messed this up, but these noise regs that we have in front of us, it says town of Abington, there's an agenda back here saying these were discussed and probably approved in August of 2010, has no authority because the DEP didn't approve it?
I would need to talk to my lawyer, and I would say that you would need to talk to your lawyer about that, because I'm not sure about the distinction.
You're not sure we want to talk to lawyers?
Yeah, I'm not even sure we do either, but I'm just saying, I'm not a lawyer, and I haven't really gotten the whole detailed interpretive comparison between 31, which is general health department regulations, which towns have the authority to promulgate without DEP approval for local sanitary code and so forth.
So you're talking about like a local regulation?
Yes, there is no obligation or requirement for DEP approval under 31. But under 31C, there is. And that's the special air pollution stuff. So what I need to figure out, find out if there's any precedent for is for the noise reg to have been approved by the department under 31C.
Just a quick note,
Yeah.
the section under 31C, I don't know if this is important or not, but it does say, including but not limited to
Yes.
emissions, smoke, blah, blah, blah.
Right. So that would suggest
It would suggest to me
that
it
we
might,
could,
yeah.
if DEP regulates noise as air pollution, that we probably could under 31C
That's what
approve a
I'm-
noise reg. But what I found
Never
was,
seen it happen.
I've never seen it. All I've seen going back in the archives and the hard copy correspondence in the paper, the paper, has been
Fun
letters
job.
responding to health department correspondence saying, we've got your request, we don't want to go there. We want you to enforce our regs under 310 CMR 752, the enforcement provisions that basically provide for municipal enforcement of the air pollution regulations.
Do those include noise?
Yes. And I have, for your information, copies of the pages in the air, the 600 pages of the air regulations, which deal with noise.
Okay.
So it's not that many. It's actually only 7 pages.
Out of 600?
Out of 600 to deal with noise. So let me pass those out so you can see what we're working with. And I'll keep that one. I think that's enough. Right for me.
That's fine, just share.
Share.
I think there's
There's another
another
one.
There's another one.
Did you bring some examples from other cities and towns, what they,
No, because I didn't find any that we get approved under 31C.
Oh, I see, okay. Did you hear that, Thomas?
No, what?
I just asked him if he brought any examples from other cities and towns where they currently had, no, because he couldn't find any that DEP had
Would be approved under
Yeah.
31C.
Yeah.
Fully noted.
Yeah, I mean, there are many out there.
Do you feel better because you couldn't find it either?
I have done due diligence, sir.
I did talk to Sharon
Yes.
and said if she could reach out to the health boards and whatever the statewide association of health boards. and
We
health
have a
officials,
few.
That they may be able to provide some examples.
Are you looking for, I work construction and I have access to safety officers, and we have noise meters. And we post them periodically because they feel that the noise on the job sites get too loud. They'll post the meters and then actually post signs saying air protection required beyond this point. So I could get.
Is that more of an occupational exposure?
Not level 7-9 work.
Yeah, okay, so this is more of an OSHA.
Yeah, it's an OSHA thing.
Yeah. So let me just lead you through this real quickly. The first page is just the table of contents, and you'll notice that 7.10 is actually the noise regulation. That's what's listed on that page. Then as we get into a few excerpts from the definitions, the second page at the very bottom has the definition of air contaminant. You'll see that on the third line, second from the bottom, sound is included as an air contaminant. So that's kind of the basis under which we include noise under the air.
That's really working hard to find that.
Well, this is what I do every day.
Now I know my secret. I have to go in the index and search on sound.
We do take advantage of the search function in Adobe Acrobat.
Yeah, you have to.
You really have to do this. So air contaminant, and then we get down into air pollution on the top of the next page. Air contamination source and air pollution. Air pollution means the presence in ambient air space of one or more air contaminants so on and so forth, that would cause a nuisance or be injurious or interfere with the enjoyment of life and property at the time of the business. So from that, you get that sound as an air contaminant, could be air pollution if it annoys people, or if it creates a problem in this list of things that are properties of air pollution.
So you got that right there, that first, the air contaminant source.
Yeah.
Any air contaminant is emitted to the ambient airspace, right? Okay.
Okay, and then we get over onto the next page, right at the bottom, we actually define noise. Sound of sufficient intensity or duration that was to cause or contribute to a condition of air pollution, which is kind of a circular argument because those are things that are annoying or injurious. And then we also define on the next page sound, which is kind of a physics definition, phenomenon, alternative increases, decreases in the pressure of the atmosphere caused by radiations having a frequency range of 20 to 20,000 cycles per second that elicits a physiologic response by the human sense of hearing. That's about it in the definitions from anything that's relevant. And then the next page is the entirety of the noise regulation, which doesn't even take up a whole page. When a person owning, leasing, or controlling a source of sound shall willfully, negligently, or through failure to provide necessary equipment, service, or maintenance, or take necessary precautions, cause, suffer, allow, or permit unnecessary emissions from said source of sound that may cause noise. It talks in the second thing about shall pertain to, shall not be limited to prolonged unintended sound, burglar alarms, construction and demolition equipment, characteristics of the unit sound, but which may be fitted and accommodated with equipment such as enclosures, suppress sound, may be operated in a manner so as to suppress sound, suppressible and preventable industrial and commercial sources of sound under man-made sound causing noise. And then 3 is exemptions for celebrations, emergency vehicles, and domestic equipment such as lawnmower and power saw between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. And then the last thing is the key as far as the department is concerned. Basically, subject to the enforcement provisions specified in 752, which is on the last page I handed out, which is essentially the provision that says if we include a citation to 752 in one of the other air regulations in this 600-page book, we basically endow the municipality with enforcement authority in the air pollution regs. And the noise reg is one of those where we say municipalities may enforce as well. Police, fire, board of health. Building inspector, although building inspector these days, there's some litigation as to whether or not building inspectors are actually authorized to air pollution.
So, to expedite,
Yes.
if the board was to take a vote to establish the states of the DEP's regulations for air pollution as they attribute to noise, sound, whatever, and we voted in the affirmative, and we sent that to the DEP probably wouldn't have a problem supporting that because we're supporting the same rights that you guys are enforcing.
Right, I mean, reasonableness is the test, and it can't be any less stringent than our regs because why would we approve it with less stringent?
Okay, so to get something legitimately established, before we went into specifics, if we want to do something at the town level,
Yeah.
we could at least get that done.
And as far as the department is concerned, you already have the authority to do that.
Okay.
No, but there's no decibel.
So the decibel comes in with the policy, which is the 10 dB. I'll pass that out. And there's more than just the policy.
So now, as far as noise regulations and noise regs and air pollution, like, now I was at the lake the other day and they have a basketball court. Is that considered like a public, like a sporting event? It's in between the highway department and the police station. Now, I was at the lake fishing and I found it was not very relaxing at all because the kids over there were screaming and yelling. and using the worst language. Like, there's no way I could ever bring my 11-year-old down here. Like, is that considered a noise regulation?
Generally speaking, when we're dealing with noise regulations, we're dealing with establishments that either have equipment or the nature of what goes on in the establishment. Like, for example, Great Woods or Comcast Center, whatever they call it.
Yeah.
That's been the subject of noise complaints, and they've been required by the department to mitigate the noise from very loud rock and roll concerts. So they've done engineering of the public address system there in such a way to focus it directionally and with frequency. So it's not as bad as it might have been if they hadn't done that. With respect to gatherings of people that are noisy, it's much more difficult to enforce, either for a local official or for the department, when what's really going on is it's like raucous behavior as opposed to an establishment that is by nature noisy.
So this is just for establishments
Yeah, I
or
mean,
households
if you talk
or
about
businesses?
equipment, permanent structures or activities that are established in a particular location that are by nature noisy, that you have some methods to control it. That's one of the things we talk about in the definition. Or no, in the regulation itself.
Well, you got it on 7.10.
Yeah.
Noise, it shall not apply to sounds emitted during and associated with parades, public gatherings, or sporting events.
For which permits have been issued.
I don't know if there's been any permits. They built that basketball court in between the.
It's open to the public.
On
It's a public
police
place.
station grounds.
Yeah, you would think
Police
that,
station.
isn't it illegal to, like, curse in public and,
It should be.
I believe it is.
But that gets into more community values type of a discussion, and so I'm not sure about where you draw the line between a sort of an establishment activity that is noisy versus where you can measure the sound level as exceeding.
I don't really even care about the noise, it's the
Right.
things that they're
Right.
saying, I just,
Right.
for me, that's noise pollution. I don't
Right.
wanna hear
Right. I think
it,
that
I'm trying to enjoy
we would all
myself.
agree with that.
There's children down there, there's, kids riding bikes.
Right.
For me, that's,
Yeah.
I mean, and especially where it's located, where's the pride here? We talk about Abington Pride.
Right.
And it's located right there.
And I think that I can't say for sure, but I think that the department is a local issue that needs to be worked out through some kind of civil discourse, as opposed to something where we would have enforcement action and put a decibel limit, require engineering controls for that. I mean, what you do is you post it for only during such and such hours and say the following kinds of behavior are prohibited, and see how it works. I mean, I know that could be very.
Well, I think they're prohibited in public anyway, but I don't want to spend any more money up there at that
I
point.
have a question. I've had calls at times from loud music after hours, residential apartment building.
Right.
That's something that would fall into this, correct?
Yes, it would.
Yeah.
If it's after 11.
Right.
Yeah.
After 9 p.m.
Yeah, in between certain, well,
I mean, but the question becomes whether there are other avenues. Well, I mean, this is disturbing
The peace, correct.
as opposed to
Yeah.
a noise violation
So you're-
of the noise standard.
So you're basically telling us that a lot of this pertains to more of a measurable device, but also to do with more of like almost commercial and domestic equipment.
So I'm going to give you the two other pieces of information that we have that do go a little farther as far as interpretation of and the way we enforce the reg.
we do have our normal noise regulations, which are from 11 p.m. at night till 7 a.m. in the morning. You're supposed to be quiet. That's just the regular.
Oh, I see.
So in the air pollution control program, we do a couple of things. When somebody's coming in to get a permit for an air pollution source, because they actually have a smokestack or an industrial process or burning fuel that triggers our thresholds for requiring air permit, larger air pollution sources, part of our review is a review of the potential for cause condition of air pollution, which would include noise. And we require background noise estimates for the area that's going to be impacted by this project, and modeling based on the engineered information of the sound power level emissions of the equipment that's going in, and what the impacts are going to be at the nearby residences and the property line. And we also require best available control technology, which is you have sound insulation, you have an enclosure around this noisy thing, and we shoot for less than the 10 decibels because we want a margin of safety. That's only for projects that are already coming in for an air permit. We don't have a threshold for how noisy is this going to be, and can we require an air permit just on the basis of the estimated sound levels of the source. So it's just really, when we're looking at other air pollution, we also look at noise. The other thing we do is we get complaints, or local officials get complaints. We try to direct people who are complaining to direct their complaints to the local health department. I'm just telling you what they told me. And then the regional offices, in your case Lakeville, would be a resource to land a noise meter. Okay. And so we try to work it on that level with respect to local enforcement of either local noise regs or the state noise reg. So that would be.
What do you recommend for, well, I brought up before the commercial residential issues, when you have commercial property backs up against a residential property and you have pretty well consistent complaints?
Well, part of it comes from the historically, the whole movement to the nuisance question. If the commercial property is established and it's noisy, but there wasn't previously